History is not just written in stone, it is etched into the silence where justice failed. They were condemned for heresy, for dissent, or simply for the unforgivable crime of being visible. Immigration is silence so absolute, broken only by the sound of metal closing around bone. We believe suffering is random. We were wrong. It was, and is, a calculated science. Forget the screams. Today, we examine the logic that designed the suffering. Subscribe to the channel before watching the full video. The true measure of any civilization is not found in its grand monuments or golden treasuries, but in the shadows it casts, the methods used to silence those who questioned the established order. This is a journey into the architecture of condemnation, the calculated systems of power designed to enforce obedience through controlled, profound suffering. We are not focusing on random acts of malice, but on the formalized cruelty, the mechanisms that ensured conformity across centuries. For the historian, these instruments of correction offer a chilling insight into the minds of those who ruled, demonstrating that power often requires a visible, visceral deterrent to sustain itself. What came next changed everything. You stand now at the precipice of these historical shadows. Consider the weight of accusation in an age where law and superstition were inextricably bound. If you were deemed a witch, a heretic, or simply a woman who defied the rigid expectations of your time, the process was swift and uncompromising. The objective was never mere confinement. It was the psychological and physical collapse of the individual, transforming the body into a public text written in pain. This process of degradation was designed to terrify not just the condemned, but everyone who witnessed the slow, inevitable downfall. The medieval era perfected devices of correction that married mechanical ingenuity with psychological horror. These tools were often assigned names that belied their function, names like the iron chair or the Catherine wheel. Such implements were not built quickly in back alleys. They were crafted by skilled artisans, testament to the official institutionalized nature of the cruelty. The flickering oil lamp illuminates the rusted, intricate fittings, hinting at the hours of preparation required before the process of severe suffering could commence. Take, for instance, the infamous iron chair. This was not simply a piece of furniture. It was a psychological trap designed to exploit the natural human need for rest. Imagine the cold, unyielding iron, studded with countless sharp projections, forcing the condemned to endure unimaginable distress hour after agonizing hour. Beneath the seat, a compartment sometimes held coals, turning the metal into a slow, searing indictment of alleged crimes, particularly those associated with forbidden acts or dissent against church doctrine. The silence of the secure chamber was often more horrifying than any noise. Pedestrians was twofold: to extract a confession, often regardless of truth, and to create a spectacle of consequence. The severity of the device ensured that the body itself became the loudest testimony to the power of the ruling authority. To bleed out slowly, secured to a throne of misery, was to demonstrate publicly that deviation carried the highest possible price. But these mechanisms of cruelty were not limited to the physical realm. Sometimes, the systematic violation of dignity was the primary weapon. We move now from the rigid iron of the medieval era to the chaotic revolutionary fervor of late 18th century France. The Reign of Terror was an unprecedented period where political paranoia replaced spiritual dogma as the dominant source of mass condemnation. Here, the cruelty shifted from intricate mechanical devices to spontaneous mass acts of purge, designed to erase entire classes of opposition overnight. The air along the Loire River in Nantes, between 1793 and 1794, was heavy with the damp chill of impending tragedy. Under the command of Jean-Baptiste Carrier, a horrifying method of swift execution was utilized, known chillingly as the Republican marriage. This technique involved stripping the victims, often priests, nuns, or royalist sympathizers, binding a man and a woman together and casting them into the frigid waters. The horror of the Republican marriage was not only the tragic end itself, but the ultimate violation of dignity and the deliberate sacrilege involved in the forced pairing. The act mocked the sacred bonds of matrimony and religious devotion, turning a final moment into a spectacle of political degradation. The river became a silent, churning grave, erasing the condemned rapidly, yet leaving an indelible stain on the revolution's reputation. This systematic imposition of profound suffering extended into the policing of women's sexuality and societal roles. Consider the tools used specifically against those accused of unnatural motherhood or forbidden indulgence. The breast ripper, a gruesome metal apparatus with sharp, pointed prongs, was designed to be applied to the female anatomy, ensuring maximum distress and permanent marking. It was a tool of public shaming and identification. The purpose of the breast ripper was intensely symbolic: to punish a woman for transgressing the boundaries of approved motherhood and domesticity, and to visibly mark her as a societal outcast. It was a physical manifestation of the prevailing belief that a woman's body and reproductive capacity were the property of the state or the church, and any deviation required severe, unforgettable correction. Yet even these localized horrors pale in comparison to the transcended civilizations and still echo in parts of the modern world. Some punishments are brutally simple, requiring no mechanical genius, only the collective will of the community to enforce compliance. The practice of stoning is perhaps one of the oldest forms of capital punishment, rooted deeply in ancient legal and religious texts. It is a terrifying exercise in communal condemnation, where the responsibility for the downfall is distributed among many hands, dissolving individual culpability into collective rage. The process is protracted and agonizing. Imagine the dust, the sun, and the inexorable approach of the community, stones in hand. While historically applied to various crimes, the victims in modern times are disproportionately women accused of moral transgressions, particularly adultery. The involvement of family members in so-called honor killings adds an unthinkable layer of familial betrayal to the victim's final, severe suffering. Even in the 21st century, documented cases show this ancient practice persists across several nations. It stands as a chilling reminder that the human impulse to control behavior through public spectacle remains a constant factor in historical conflict, regardless of technological advancement or societal evolution. The architecture of condemnation demonstrates that human cruelty is rarely accidental. It is overwhelmingly organized. From the spiked metal of the Middle Ages to the forced drowning of the Revolution, the goal remains the same: the total erasure of the defiant self. But this wasn't the end of their design. We must now confront the instruments designed to punish specifically female dissent, targeting the very essence of reproductive life and freedom of expression. These devices reveal a deep historical anxiety surrounding female autonomy, particularly in matters of reproduction. The pair of anguish, a disturbing example from the arsenal of punitive tools, was a metal instrument designed with 4 petal-shaped segments. Slowly opened by a lever, it caused extreme internal trauma. While historical accounts regarding its widespread use are debated among scholars, its very design reflects the period's deep-seated need to impose catastrophic consequences on those accused of forbidden acts or attempts to end pregnancy. The mechanism was simple, yet devastating. The slow, deliberate turn of the screw, the tearing of tissue, it symbolized the ultimate violation of privacy and personal sovereignty. This focus on internal damage ensured the pain was hidden, yet profoundly damaging, often leading to rapid collapse. Yet, sometimes the most brutal instruments of control targeted not the body, but the mind and the voice. Consider the seemingly mundane act of speaking out, or nagging, as defined by the patriarchy of the time. This minor offense was met with one of history's most psychologically damaging tools, the Scold's bridle. Imagine a rigid iron mask locked over your head, transforming you into a spectacle of humiliation. Sometimes, small spikes were placed within the bridle, resting painfully on the tongue, making speech nearly impossible. This was not about physical destruction. It was about public annihilation of personality. Paraded through the town square, you were subjected to the curses and spittle of onlookers. Your crime was simple gossip, complaint, or merely being too outspoken. The Scold's bridle illustrates the most heinous punishment for the most minute misdeeds, forcing a woman into the most abject form of silence. The psychological torment far outweighed the mild physical discomfort. Convictions, we briefly acknowledge the shocking practice of death by sawing, used predominantly for major offenses like blasphemy or deep treason. This method involved suspending the condemned upside down and splitting the body vertically, often while they remained tragically conscious. The prolonged agony ensured the maximum possible duration of severe suffering. In reviewing these varied historical mechanisms, a pattern emerges. The woman who was condemned was often treated as a double criminal, first for the crime itself, and second for transgressing the strict societal views regarding a woman's place. The cruelty was systematized, the suffering calculated, and the subsequent downfall ensured. These stories are not presented for shock, but as vital historical records. They challenge us to understand how profoundly systems of power, whether driven by religious fanaticism, political paranoia, or social anxiety, can engineer mechanisms of profound suffering. The echoes of anguish resonate not just in the past, but as a perpetual warning about the fragility of liberty. This video is created for educational and historical purposes. It examines themes of power, corruption, and human conflict without depicting explicit or graphic events. If this made you question the past, you're welcome to continue the journey with us. Walk further into history's shadows with us as we continue to unlock the complexities of the human condition.